The city was a beast, its underbelly a labyrinth of shadows where secrets festered and nightmares were born. Detective Alex Turner was a creature of this darkness, a man worn smooth by the city's relentless grind. His eyes, the color of weathered copper, held the weight of countless unsolved cases. Today, though, the city had outdone itself. It began with a whisper, rumor carried on the cold wind that swept through the grimy alleyways. A woman found, a masterpiece of horror. No witnesses, no leads, just a chilling tableau of violence. The victim, a young artist named Lily, was found in her loft, a canvas of her own blood and fear. A single crimson eye stared out from the center of her chest, a macabre signature. Turner arrived at the scene, the acrid scent of death already clinging to the air. The loft was a chaos of overturned furniture and shattered glass. In the center, Lily was a grotesque, frozen moment. Her body was a canvas, a grotesque masterpiece. The crimson eye, a perfect circle, was the only thing that seemed untouched by the violence. There was no forced entry, no signs of struggle. It was as if she had invited the monster into her home. But who would want to create such a horrific spectacle? As he stood there, the weight of the case settling on his shoulders, Turner felt a familiar dread. This was more than just a murder, it was a declaration of war. A game had begun, and the city was the playing field. And he, Alex Turner, was the reluctant champion. Turner stared at the crimson eye, a macabre signature etched into Lily's chest. It was a challenge, a dare, a sick game. His gut twisted into a knot. He'd seen his share of gruesome scenes, but this was different. This was art, twisted and perverse. He called for forensics, his voice flat and detached. The city was already buzzing with the news. A young, promising artist found murdered in her own home. The media would have a field day, and the public would be terrified. Turner knew he had to move fast. This wasn't just a case, it was a city under siege. Days blurred into nights as Turner and his team pored over the crime scene photos, the autopsy report, and the scant evidence. Nothing. No fingerprints, no DNA, just a perfect crime, or so it seemed. The killer was a ghost, a phantom who slipped through their grasp. Desperation crept into Turner's bones. He needed a fresh perspective, a mind unclouded by the city's grime. That's when the name Bianca Nolan surfaced. A rising star in forensic psychology, known for her uncanny ability to delve into the criminal mind. She was young, with a sharp intellect and an unsettling calm. Her eyes held a depth that hinted at the darkness she must confront daily. As they stood over the crime scene photos, Turner saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes. It was a spark of hope, a promise of something more. "We're dealing with a master here, Turner," she said, her voice low. "Someone who enjoys the game." A chill ran down Turner's spine. He knew she was right. This was more than just a murder. It was a sick, twisted game, and the killer was playing for keeps. Nolan studied the crimson eye, her brow furrowed in thought. "This is a message," she murmured. "A symbol of control, of manipulation. The puppet master is telling us that he's pulling the strings." Turner nodded, his jaw clenched. The name stuck like a burr in his mind. The puppet master. It was fitting. They had to get ahead of the game before more lives were claimed. The case grew colder with each passing day. The city's fear grew palpable, a miasma that clung to every shadow. The puppet master remained elusive, their taunts echoing through the quiet streets. Each new crime scene was a grim reminder of their untouchable nature. But then, a breakthrough. A pattern emerged, a thread weaving through the victims' lives. They had all attended the same art school, had known each other. It was a connection, tenuous, but it was something. Turner and Nolan followed the thread, delving into the school's archives, interviewing former teachers and classmates. They found whispers of a student who had been shunned, a prodigy whose work had been too dark, too disturbing. The trail grew warm, the killer's presence almost tangible. As they approached the heart of the mystery, the tension between them grew. Turner's old-school instincts clashed with Nolan's academic approach. They argued, debated, and pushed each other to the brink. Yet, in their shared obsession with the case, they found an unlikely bond. Their relationship evolved from a wary dance to a partnership fueled by mutual respect and the grim understanding that they were the only ones who could stop the puppet master. The stakes were high, and the clock was ticking. The final act was about to begin, and the city held its breath, waiting for the grand reveal. The anticipation was a living thing, pulsing in the very air they breathed. Turner and Nolan knew that the next move would be the most crucial. One misstep and the puppet master would vanish back into the shadows, leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. They had to think like the killer, anticipate his moves, understand his twisted logic. The rain fell in sheets as they approached the abandoned warehouse that matched the description from the last cryptic message. The building loomed over them, a silent sentinel of the city's forgotten past. Inside, they found a stage, set for the grand finale. The air was thick with the stench of fear and anticipation. The walls were adorned with the missing pieces of their lives, the stolen moments that had made each victim who they were. It was a grisly exhibition of the killer's power. Turner's hand tightened around his gun as they moved deeper into the warehouse. He could feel the puppet master's eyes on them, watching, waiting. This was it, the endgame. And as they stepped into the final room, the storm outside seemed to hold its breath. In the center, a single chair, a spotlight shining down on it. And tied to that chair, a figure, face obscured by a mask. The puppet master had left his piece de resistance. The tension was unbearable, a tightrope they were both walking. Who was it? Who had the killer chosen to be the final piece in their macabre puzzle? And what was the message he was about to send to the world? Their hearts raced as they approached, the floorboards creaking beneath their feet. The figure in the chair didn't move, didn't breathe. It was a statue, a part of the scene. Turner reached out to remove the mask, his hand trembling. The moment of truth was upon them. But as the fabric fell away, the face revealed was not what they had expected. It was a mirror, reflecting their own horror-stricken visages. The puppet master had played his final card. The realization hit them like a punch to the gut. This was the masterpiece, the grand finale. They had become the players in the killer's twisted game. And the game was far from over. Turner's gaze swept the room, searching for clues, for anything that could lead them to the truth. His eyes fell on a series of newspaper clippings pinned to the wall. Each article chronicled a tragedy, a life shattered by unspeakable violence. A pattern emerged, a trail of pain that led back to the art school. Their breaths were shallow, the air in the room thick with the scent of decay and fear. They had to find the connection, the link that bound the victims and the killer together. It was there, just out of reach, taunting them. Nolan's voice was a whisper, her eyes fixed on the clippings. "They're all survivors," she murmured. "Survivors of the same tragedy." Turner's mind raced. A fire, years ago, had ravaged the school, claiming the lives of several students and teachers. Among the survivors were Lily and the others. The puppet master had been there, watching, waiting, plotting. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place. The killer wasn't seeking random victims. He was seeking revenge, a twisted form of justice for a past injustice. The missing body parts were trophies, a symbol of the pieces of himself he had lost in the fire. They had to move fast. The next target was already chosen, already playing their part in the puppet master's play. The final act was about to unfold, and they had to stop it. Their footsteps echoed through the deserted halls of the school, the ghosts of the past whispering their secrets. They knew the killer was there, watching, ready to pounce. The tension was palpable, the air thick with the scent of burning memories. Turner's instinct screamed at him, pointing him toward the art room, the heart of the school's darkness. As they entered, the room was a chaos of shadows and half-seen figures. The puppet master had recreated the scene of the fire, the flames painted on the walls in vivid, gruesome detail. In the center of the room, the final victim was bound to an easel, her eyes wide with terror. The killer was there, the flames reflected in his own eyes, a twisted smile playing on his lips. "You're too late," the puppet master hissed, his voice a symphony of madness. "The masterpiece is almost complete." Turner's hand hovered over his gun, his breathing steady despite the horror before him. This was it, the moment of truth. He had to end this. But as he took aim, a hand clamped down on his wrist. It was Nolan. Her eyes were wild, her voice urgent. "We need to understand," she said. "Only then can we stop them." Turner stared into the abyss, the gun wavering in his hand. He knew she was right. The puppet master's mind was a labyrinth, a twisted maze of pain and anger. They had to navigate it, find the exit before the city was consumed by the flames of his madness. The killer watched them, the smile never leaving his lips. He had the upper hand, the power of the unknown. But Turner had something he didn't. He had seen the face of evil before, and he knew it could be defeated. He stepped forward, the gun lowering slightly. "Why?" he demanded. "What could drive someone to do this?" The puppet master tilted his head, the flames dancing in his eyes. "You wouldn't understand," he murmured. "You've never felt the burn." The room grew warmer, the air thick with the promise of violence. This was the moment, the precipice they had been dancing on for weeks. And in that instant, Turner knew that to stop the puppet master, they had to step into the flames themselves. He spoke slowly, his voice low and measured. "I felt the burn," he said. "Lost a partner to the fire, a friend to the shadows. Tell me, what did the school take from you?" The killer's smile grew wider, a chilling sight in the flickering light. "Ah, you see, detective," he purred. "It wasn't what the school took. It's what it gave me. A purpose, a canvas for my art." Nolan stepped up beside him, her voice firm. "You're not an artist," she said. "You're a monster." The puppet master's eyes flicked to her, and for a brief second, something almost human passed across his features. "Am I?" he whispered. "Or am I just a reflection of the world you've built?" The room grew still, the tension coiling around them like a noose. The final victim whimpered, a silent plea for mercy. Turner made his decision. He had to get through to the killer, to show them that there was another way. He took a step closer, the gun still in his hand but lowered. "We can help you," he said. "You don't have to do this." The killer's smile faltered, his grip on the knife tightening. "Help?" he spat. "No one helped me. No one cared about the screams in the night, the fires that burned me from the inside out." Turner felt the weight of the past, of his own failures and lost battles. "We care now," he said. "We're here to listen." The room held its breath, the flames on the walls seeming to pulse with anticipation. And then, the puppet master made his move. But it wasn't the strike of a killer, it was the crumple of a broken soul. He dropped the knife, the flames in his eyes dying to a dull ember. "You're too late," he murmured. "The masterpiece is almost complete." Turner's heart pounded as he reached out, his hand shaking as he grabbed the killer's wrist. "Not today," he said. "Not on my watch." The struggle was brief but intense, a dance of shadows and pain. And when the dust settled, the puppet master was in cuffs, the final victim saved. The game was over. But as they led the killer away, the echo of his maniacal laughter lingered in the air, a haunting reminder that the scars of the past never truly healed. And in the quiet of the night, as the city breathed a sigh of relief, Turner knew that the battle was won, but the war was far from over. The city's underbelly was vast, a network of darkness that spawned monsters like the Puppet Master. And though he had captured one, there would always be more, waiting in the shadows, eager to play their own twisted games. As the rain continued to fall, washing the streets clean of the night's horrors, Turner and Nolan stood in the art room, the flames of the past slowly dying around them. They had found the truth, but it was a truth that left them both changed. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. They were bound now, linked by the darkness they had faced together. And as they stepped out into the cold embrace of the night, they knew that their partnership was just beginning. The Puppet Master was behind bars, but the city was still a canvas, waiting for the next artist to make their mark. And Turner and Nolan were ready, the unsung heroes who would face the shadows, who would dare to step into the abyss to save those who could not save themselves. Their story didn't end here. It was merely the first chapter in a twisted saga that would span years and leave a trail of blood and tears. But for now, they had won a battle. And as the rain washed the crimson from the streets, they took a step forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever darkness awaited them next. The aftermath of the Puppet Master's capture was a phantom pain, a lingering echo of the storm that had passed. Turner and Nolan were left adrift, survivors on a deserted island of their own making. The city, once gripped by terror, had breathed a collective sigh of relief, and with that, the spotlight on them had dimmed. Isolation crept in, a silent companion in the quiet of their homes. Turner found himself staring out of his rain-streaked window, the city lights blurring into an indistinguishable mass. The familiar hum of the city, once a comforting backdrop, now carried an eerie silence. The case had consumed him, body and soul, and now, with the monster caged, he felt a void, a gaping chasm where purpose once resided. Nolan retreated into her work, burying herself in research, in the sterile world of data and statistics. It was a shield, a fortress against the haunting images that lingered in her mind. The Puppet Master's twisted logic, the cold calculation behind the madness, had seeped into her consciousness. She was a doctor, trained to heal, but she couldn't heal herself. Their paths crossed occasionally, their shared history a silent bond in a world that had moved on. Their conversations were laced with unspoken words, a dance of shadows and half-truths. They were survivors, bound by the scars they carried. One evening, as a particularly violent storm raged outside, Turner called Nolan. Her voice, a fragile echo in the tempest, answered. They talked for hours, their words a lifeline in the darkness. They spoke of the case, of the victims, of the city that had borne witness to their torment. And then, slowly, their conversation drifted, revealing the wounds beneath the surface. Turner spoke of the guilt, the survivor's remorse that gnawed at him. He had walked away, while others had perished. Nolan shared her fear, the terror of becoming the monster she studied. In the vulnerability of their shared pain, they found a solace, a fragile connection that transcended the professional. As the storm raged on, their conversation deepened. They spoke of hope, of redemption, of finding a way to turn their pain into something meaningful. They were broken, but they were not defeated. Together, they would rebuild, brick by brick, a life beyond the shadow of the Puppet Master. The storm eventually subsided, leaving behind a quiet, washed world. As dawn broke, casting its first light on the city, Turner and Nolan stood on the precipice of a new beginning. They were scarred, but they were survivors. And in the heart of the city that had tested them, they found the strength to carry on. Their story was far from over. The city, with its endless potential for darkness, would always be a battleground. But they were ready. They were the guardians of the night, the ones who would stand between the city and its demons. And as long as they had each other, they would face whatever storm came their way. The city was a beast, but so were they. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider subscribing to stay updated with our latest stories. Give us a like if you want to see more, and drop a comment below to let us know your thoughts.